Hello and welcome to another 28mm painting tutorial. Today's tutorial is uniform focused as per your requests on the socials. You guys wanted to see more uniforms, so today we're going to tackle Italian Camouflage in 28mm form. And this particular model is representing the SS in the Ardennes offensive, hence all the snow. Now this particular model was made up of the new Fallschirmjäger sprue as well as the Veteran German infantry sprue. Now you might have caught that veteran painting tutorial previously, and I'll leave a link to that in the video description. If you want to find these models, you can find them at the Warlord Games website. They're currently available for pre-order, but I do believe people have been getting those. And please do use my affiliate link if you want to grab some of these. It will just help the channel slightly. Now to get started, I always give my models a go with Tamiya Surface Primer Light Grey, and then I'm going to follow it up with Gunship Green for the Italian Camouflage base colour. And I'm using the AK Interactive range of paints, and I'm actually using this set because we're going to use every single colour in this set today. Italian Camouflage scheme is actually really straightforward to paint. It might not look it, but it is. However, getting the colours is very tricky. Getting the colours right and making them pop on the table is very, very tricky indeed. I found it really hard. So AK Interactive having this set is actually a godsend. Now with the helmet cover being SS, I could have painted it differently, but I saw it's just like a bit of fabric with a metal bracket on his helmet. So I'm going to paint that in deck tan, and I'm going to paint that white eventually. I think that will make it look very cool. So I thought that's what I'm going to go with. If you've got the SS sprue, the plastic infantry, then you could put one of those helmet covered heads on, or you can obviously use some of those other hair heads that have just got the splinter camo covers. You can just make them SS covers anyway. And then for the trousers, I'm using old wood. Now I'm using old wood, but you can just use khaki because they look very similar. And I do believe old wood is part of Vallejo's range, or one of the paints that might not be around anymore, or you might struggle to find. So if you are in that boat, then just swap it out for khaki, which we will be using quite heavily later on anyway, and there's really not a huge difference between the two. Now we're painting Hull Red, and these are the brown lines that you can see on the actual uniform for the camouflage scheme. And with this, you're painting nice curves. You're not painting sharp, so don't think splinter. Think some nice sort of curves with some bigger blotches, but they all sort of intertwined and interconnected. So the back of this uniform is actually a really good example of what I'm trying to get at. And I'm just making them thick enough that they're going to stand out. And I'm also leaving nice little U shapes and circles in there where we can paint that yellow color in between. Once we've got that brown on, you can see there's lots of brown on there. Now we can start painting those blobs in between, and they are just like a blob, random different sizes, all cupped in between those browns. So they're not out in the open of the green, they're in between the brown and the green there. So you can see where all those U shapes are, and the Ys and anything else I've done. I'm painting them in those sort of grooves there. Now you don't have to do it on every single one. Just have a look at some reference images. Even the AK Interactive box is really good as a reference. Then, as I said before, we're moving on to khaki, and that's going to be for the Panzerfaust. I'm going to be painting that in khaki. Ordinarily, I'd probably hit that with Middlestone, but I thought, you know what, I want to try khaki. I think Middlestone might be a bit too bright. Looking at historical images as well, it was a bit of a darker colour, this Panzerfaust. So let's try khaki, and you can let me know in the comment section if you think khaki is a better fit than Middlestone. Then for that bread bag, we're going to paint that in the same colour. Then moving on, I'm going to be painting his gloves in AK Field Grey base. So it's just your generic sort of German uniform colour. You can also use the German uniform field colour from Vallejo as well as an alternative if you so want to, and also paint underneath the helmet. That helmet hat is just protruding out, the cloth doesn't go all the way through it, so just make sure you capture that if you're following this same sort of step. Then US dark green for this box that he's got on the back there of his just on top of his bread bag. I've lost my words there, sorry. You can see I'm just painting that. If you added like an spare MG barrel or anything like ammo box, I'll be painting the same color. Then for the cup aspect of his canteen, I'm painting that in black grey. If he had a rifle or an MP40 for example, I'll be painting that in black grey also. Obviously not the wooden aspects of the rifle, but you get the gist. And then also that metal bracket on the helmet that's keeping that bit of white cloth in place. I'm going to be painting that in that same colour. Then for the canteen, I'm going to go ahead and hit it with English uniform. It's a fantastic colour for this sort of fabric material that was on the canteen, but also there were plenty of different shades, so you don't have to follow this if you don't want to. Then for the webbing, I'm going straight with black. You can use black grey if you so want, but I think black might be a good change up. It's a really dark black leather colour, but we'll see again at the end of the video if it works out. Now don't forget to paint the straps on the canteen and that other box that he's got on him. You can see that I'm painting those on there too. Don't paint them all in the same colour. As well as his boots, give those a nice coating of black. Now for something a little different, ordinarily I would have painted these rifle pouches in black, but I'm going to go with German Camo medium brown, and we're going to paint them in a leather brown colour opposed to black, just to change them up a little bit, let them stick out a little bit more, and just so we get away from painting all black on the model. And then I'm giving his chin strap a go with that as well. Now we're hitting the model with a null oil and technical medium wash at a 1:1 ratio. And the technical medium is the the thinners from Warhammer. I'm pretty sure I made the same mistake in my last video. Is the thinners from Warhammer. So you're going to thin that down to a 1:1 ratio. That wash will then go in the recesses and be nice and dark, but on those flat surfaces it won't be too dark and it won't ruin all of your hard work. Now here's where the fun begins. We're going to go ahead and hit those green areas with gunship green again. Now we've had the wash, so we're making sure we're leaving that really dark gunship green that's been washed in the recesses, and we're picking out the little details that we can see. You won't be able to get too much of it because obviously those brown and those yellows are in between, but where you can, just hit it with this gunship green, but obviously don't ruin any details of the creases that this gunship green is going over. So now we can go gunship green and faded green at a 5:1 ratio. So yes, there's very, very little amounts of that faded green, and we're just trying to brighten up that colour ever so slightly. So it's a very, very subtle highlight, and this is what it is a highlight. So I'm literally just adding little lines inside of that gunship green where I can see that there's some details that need to sort of pop. Now if it is a flat surface, you just sort of paint the middle part of it as if it's like a panel highlight. But if you can see some detail, then you can obviously capture that. Then we're going over those brown lines with hull red, and again it's all a matter of just pretty much going over what we've done, but try not to paint in any sort of grooves and that where that original colour's gone into a recess and gone really dark, as it should do, as if it's creased. But the rest of it you can pretty much paint as is. Try and leave the very, very outer edges of those lines with the original washed base color and leave the rest as the new color, if that makes sense. Hopefully it makes sense. And then hull red and deep brown at a 5:1 ratio, and this is a highlight now, so I'm just painting a little line within the middle of there. Again, this might be overkill and you may think this is absolute insanity and I don't want to do it, and that would be fair enough. You can go pretty crazy when you're painting this sort of stuff, but you can see here that it really doesn't take too much longer, and it does make it pop just a little tiny bit. It's very, very subtle, it's hard to see, but if you can see, it's great. And then middle stone for those blobs, and again the principle is exactly the same. I'm trying to just paint within the blobs but not push that middle stone out, and just helping those blobs to stand out just a little bit more. And it's a really good way of also tidying up any of those brown lines that perhaps are a bit sharper than they should be. They're just meant to be a blob. And then the same principle, so again at that 5:1 ratio, but middle stone and light earth, and I'm literally just adding in a couple of little blobs in the middle of the blob. It's all about the blobs, blobs. But yeah, you get the gist. Just in the middle, again, it's a panel highlight here, guys. Just painting the middle of it, just helping that just to stand out a little bit more and really get the eye drawn to that camouflage scheme. And this is how it should look. I think that's come out lovely. What a lovely Italian smock we've got here, but we've got to carry on. We must get the rest of the model finished, so let's work on those padded trousers. If you've watched my other winter Fallschirmjäger painting tutorial, then you'll know that old Rudd is the way I go with these mouse grey padded trousers that he's got, and I'm using it as a dry brush. There's no point painting each individual diamond that's in there. Just get a dry brush going and just do it that way. Makes it a lot easier, saves a ton of time as well. And then old wood and Iraqi sand. Now if you're unfamiliar with a dry brush, it's literally putting the paint on your paintbrush. Try and use an old paintbrush if you can, and then drying your paintbrush off, or by just sort of rubbing it on a bit of kitchen towel is my preferred thing. People use a bit of foam, whatever you want to use, and until it's more of like a powdery consistency, or it's a very dry consistency but it has got a little tiny bit of paint left on there. So try and do that if you can, and then follow it up finally with an Iraqi sand dry brush. Now this is just in the important areas. Don't have to worry about dry brushing the whole entire thing. Just try and capture those raised edges, so the bend in the knees, and where there might be a crease in the back of the leg there that you can see on his left leg. Now with that done, we can move on to the khaki parts of this model. So I'm using khaki for the Panzerfaust as well as the bread bag, and you can see that I'm using a very, very fine brush, of which I have a video on the brushes I use that you can find obviously within my video section, but I'll leave a link to that in the video description of this particular video as well if you're interested in knowing what I'm using. I'm also painting the bread bag, as I've already mentioned, in this khaki. This is a layer, so it's not a highlight, but you can see there perfectly that I've left some of that original base color in the crease that's been washed, and I'm painting around that. Then for the final highlights of those raised areas, I'm using khaki and stone grey. Now the Panzerfaust has obviously those flat surfaces of the tube, so you can see that I'm only focusing on the top half of the Panzerfaust, and I'm adding in just little lines, trying to break it up and make that highlight just subtly blend in. Now it's moving on to the bread bag. You see I'm painting the top of the bread bag, that groove, that raised area of the groove on the top there, and all the little minor details. Now for their helmet cover, we're using deck tan, and you can see there's lots of details in here that you can capture. So take your time, which I always like to do, and just capture all those and just scratch it in. My method is always the same. I like to scratch away. So you see I'm just adding in little details and slowly scratching, opposed to putting a big blob of paint on there and then going, oh, this isn't what I wanted to do, which is what we're all guilty of. We do it all the time. And then for the final bit of this helmet cover, I'm using white grey. Now I'm going to avoid saying it's a highlight because it's very, very generous. It's like layering. Because it's very white, I want it to stand out. So I'm capturing the raised edges, but I'm not being too pedantic about being like, oh, I can't paint that in white grey because it's not a proper highlight. Just do it. Who cares? It's only a helmet cover anyway. You understand what works and what doesn't work. Now for that green bit of equipment has got on the back here, I use US dark green again, and you can see there's lots and lots of details in here. These plastic figures from Warlord are absolutely lovely. We've done a stellar job with this, and I love the fact that I can put those veteran helmets, those here veteran helmets, on this Fallschirmjäger body, and the fact that this guy's fighting the Panzerfaust, I think it just looks so cool. They've done a really, really good job. Then US dark green and German camo beige at a 2-to-1 ratio. That's very important, 2-to-1. Don't want to do 1-to-1 because German camo beige is a very light colour. US dark green is obviously quite dark. If you go to 1-to-1, it's just going to look unrealistic for my tastes anyway. So I like subtle highlights, which is like what I like to harp on about. If you're an existing member of the channel, you're going to be going, oh god, I wish this guy would shut up about that, but that's exactly what I like to do. So for those brown leather areas, for this case he's got his Car 98 sort of pouches, but if you had an MP40 pouch, a map case, those chin straps, we're just doing the exact same thing. There's 3 nice little grooves in those Car 98 pouches that I'm painting and leaving that original colour in the recesses. And then now I'm just highlighting, so adding a little tiny line on each side, the middle, and then along the top there, which you can see in this shot actually quite well. So that's good. You can sort of see how I'm highlighting those pouches that have got all that amazing detail on them. The chin strap, you'll just put a line on either side as well. And then the canteen, we're going over it in English uniform. Again, I'm scratching away. You can see I'm just scratching it, building up this layer and just looking, where do I need a bit more paint? Where have I gone a little bit too hard? Or where will I might go a little bit too hard? Where it might look silly? So just go less is more, guys. Less is more. And obviously it doesn't involve any cleanup work if you don't put too much on. And then English uniform and khaki grey at that 1:1 ratio, just to make that water bottle pop, which it already is. That English uniform is a fantastic colour for that fabric of the German water bottle. And then black grey for the medal band across the helmet, that bracket that's keeping that bit of white cloth in place. Also going to be painting the cap of his water bottle in this colour. If he had a weapon, he'd be painting it in that colour as well. Yeah, black grey is just a great initial base colour for metal, in my opinion, as well as tyres, but we're not painting a vehicle here, so we'll just keep it vehicle appropriate. And then black grey and basalt grey at a 1:1 ratio, and this is our final highlight for these metal areas, or these dark black areas. Dark grey I should say. And you can see I'm just adding in just a little line. It's really hard to highlight something that's this small. You just add in just literally a line, little few dots here and there to show where the bracket sort of meets with the clip of the helmet. Then for the webbing, we use black and black grey at a 1:1 ratio. So we're obviously not going back over in black. We've put a black wash over it. There's no point going back over the webbing in black because it's just gonna do nothing. But that black and black grey is a very subtle way of reducing the real darkness of that black and starting to make this leather look a little bit more worn. The black leather for the webbing look a little bit more worn and make it stand out. And then finally, we hit that with black grey, just to make sure that that black grey is going to make the details that I want to pop. So in this case, there's a strap coming down this piece of equipment. I'm going to be painting the bits of that strap that I really want to pop, that I feel like are important. So I'm going to use that brighter, that black grey, to make that do the popping for me. I'm also going to hit the boots with a little bit of black grey, just to give them a little something. You're probably going to end up weathering these boots anyway, so they're going to end up brown and that. But there's no harm done. Then for those gloves, we're using AK Field Grey base. If you had a scarf, you could paint this in the same colour. Obviously, if you could see his normal uniform poking through, you'd paint this in the same colour too. And then to highlight that, you can use AK Field Grey base and green grey at a 1:1 ratio. There's lots and lots of little grooves for the hand and where the sort of knuckles would be. So yeah, just use this as a way of highlighting all of that and making those hands stick out a little bit more, holding that Panzerfaust, and you can see that they already are. Now for that belt buckle, I just put a little bit of base lead belcher from Warhammer, just a silver, any old silver, very little on my tip of my paintbrush, and just adding in tiny little details. So it's in black and black grey, like the rest of the webbing, but just adding in a little bit of that silver. And there we go, he has finished. My SS Soldier for the Ardennes with his Panzerfaust has been completed. If you want to know how I painted the sticker on the Panzerfaust, it was very simple. It was white grey and then just a little bit of black that's watered down, and just put that on for the bit of writing that's on there. As well as the skin, I've got a 28mm face painting tutorial, sounds a bit silly doesn't it, that explains how I paint faces. My faces are going to be changing very slightly, the way I paint faces, so you're going to notice differences. I'm experimenting with different methods as per some of my friends' advice and that, so we'll see how it comes out, and if I feel like it's an improvement, then I'll definitely share that with you guys. A huge thank you goes out to Warlord Games for sending out these sprues. As always, they are absolutely lovely. I do love these plastic sprues, especially these new ones that are coming out. Also got to mention my Patreons and YouTube channel members. You guys are absolutely fantastic, and a special mention goes out to my Panzer Aces, Patrick, Oscar, James, Panzer Jim and Colin. You guys are bloody legends. Thanks for being those aces. Alright guys, don't forget to drop me a comment below what 28mm uniform painting tutorial you would like to see next. You want to see some more SS, or should we go with a different nationality altogether? Let me know below. I'll be intrigued to know what you'd like to see. I'm going to leave it here guys. Take care, and I'll catch you at the next one.